Hi everyone, it's Rena. So this video is about the strawberry full moon supermoon in Sagittarius at 23 degrees of Sag. I'm recording this in my closet because I was hunkering down where we had a tornado that was very close, a tornado warning, I should say, and it might have touchdown because in a nearby town there was damage. But it's past now. But I'm still in my closet, and so I filmed a brief tarot pull for the full moon, and I'm gonna just tack it on to the end of this reading. So I wanted to just talk about a little bit of the energy. I wasn't necessarily going to do a reading for this full moon, but I thought that it might be interesting to look at what is going on here. So, at the time of the full moon, the sun is in the opposite sign and the same degree. So, the sun is at 23 Gemini, moon is 23 Sag. And Mercury is also in Gemini, but at 0 degrees. It has just gone back into Gemini. And this is important because Gemini was the sign where it retrograded. It still isn't up to full power before it retrograded. That's going to come in a few days. But it is getting there. And we also have Venus in Taurus and Mars in Aries. And so there's a lot of masculine energy here. Jupiter is also in Aries. So Mars is in the sign that it rules. And this makes it very aggressive. It's a warrior energy. And with the conjunction to Jupiter, this can sometimes produce exaggerated actions that could be of a volatile nature, because Aries is the first sign and it just is very reactive. It's a fire sign. It's a cardinal sign. So it's impatient, rash. And right before I heard the tornado sirens, I was out and I didn't check the weather, and I noticed some weird energy, and I noticed this sometimes during or maybe just before a full moon, where it can run the gamut, but there was some kind of erratic things going on, behaviors, and this is just the night before. We will see what happens tomorrow. So, Gemini, as the sun sign, is all about news. Okay, so with the moon in Sagittarius, and Sagittarius being about truth and about freedom, these are issues that we have been debating, sorting out for years now. And part of the reason for this is because Neptune is in Pisces. And we had, for a time we had Saturn in Sagittarius, and we had Jupiter in Sagittarius at one point, although that was a while ago. But we've had these planets that squared off to Neptune, which has been in Pisces for a decade. And so it's been squaring off to Sag placements, and that has created a sense of conflict. When you have a square, there's a frustration, there is a sense of an impasse, and with the full moon, the tensions kind of come to a boiling point. In some cases, it doesn't have to be, but you have this Martian energy, which is fire energy as well. Fire energy tends to be very aggressive and very rash. It wants what it wants right now. It doesn't want to wait for things. And so whether in this case it could be the truth. It could be like, don't lie to me anymore. And we're seeing in dribs and drabs this kind of, people are waiting for this grand disclosure, but it's coming out little by little. And in some cases, we could point to a certain area that it's coming out, and we have no idea where the other. Let me put it this way: there's a lot of irons in the fire at the moment, and so there's a lot of deception to go around in different areas of our world. Different things are going on. The big news stories that you keep hearing about. There are, to me, there is deception in a lot of those things that still needs to be revealed. And people are waiting for the big reveal, and yet it seems like it just keeps going on and on. But it's like the Tower card in the tarot. I didn't pull the Tower card, but it is like the Tower card because something has to give at some point. You can only go so far with deception, and then there's critical mass where more and more people are not believing the narrative, and initially people assigned political ideas or affiliations to what I'm talking about. And more people realize this has nothing to do with that. And that, political parties and all these things, these are ways to confuse and divide people. These have nothing to do with what is happening. It's really a battle between good and evil. And Sagittarius, being ruled by Jupiter, is about the good in life. The what I was going to say, the more the what should I say, the moral things in life, but then it sounds very dogmatic for me to say it, because what kind of morals? Whose morals? So I don't really want to go there, but I do believe that Sagittarius has its, like a universal type of code of conduct, if you will, of what is good and true in life. And, the full moon's effect doesn't necessarily last that long. I mean, this is not a lunar eclipse, but it still can have reverberations. Maybe there's just like something that leaks out. We will see. I'm recording this on the eve of that full moon, and something can it's like a snowball effect sometimes, and it just takes one thing to get the ball rolling. And remember that, like I said, there are different areas that are ready for exposure, not just one. And when everything is revealed, I think people will see that we've been lied to for eons, deceived for eons. And the point of this, the ultimate point, isn't to make people angry. It's to liberate people. And that's really how I see Sagittarius at the end of the day, is a sign of freedom and truth. And the truth shall set you free, right? So let me see anything else that I wanted to talk about that is related to the actual transits at this time. Um, it's very interesting because we have a conjunction between Venus and Uranus, and of course they're both in Taurus, which is which is ruled by Venus, and the ruler of the second house, also the seventh, but in this case the second house of earned income. Uh, and just hearing about the stock market, apparently there was a big loss, and this is on the eve of the full moon, but this could point to something that just rebounds and is, amazing in the opposite direction, but it's just like kind of very unpredictable, with Uranus, that it just is a surprise to everyone. But it's also well aspected to Pluto with a trine. And Pluto can also speak about wealth. So, there's always the possibility for abundance to be manifested. Sag is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is all about that. And this could be very lucrative for some people. And maybe they never expected this to happen, but it did anyway. The sun is trining Saturn. I think that that's good because then that means that cooler heads can prevail. And the moon is trining Mars. That can be very good for the emotional nature of not flying off the handle. Even though Mars is in conjunction with Jupiter, there still is that nice angle from the moon to Mars. So that's a bit of a relief. It's also good. I mean, the fact that this full moon is happening like on a Tuesday is a relief too, because it's not like on a weekend. It's during a work day. So maybe it won't be too crazy. People will be more in a serious mode. And like I said, there's a trine between the sun and Saturn. So maybe people will be focusing more on their work than on, going crazy. But the thing I wanted to end with is talking about those squares from the sun to Neptune and the moon to Neptune. The moon to Neptune is very irrational when it comes to a person's reactions to things. And it's irrational in terms of being in denial. And again, because the sun and Mercury are in the sign of Gemini, which is all about bringing out truth. I mean, bringing the news, and of course, Sag is highlighting it in terms of the veracity of what is going on. But Gemini can be like the media, for instance. If there is some kind of major story that is upsetting to people, they may go right into denial mode, and then their emotional reaction is based on a fallacy, is based on a delusion. And the reason that this is unfortunate is because the person it's going to keep the person from healing as quickly as they could, because they refuse to see the truth in something, and the reactions that they have are based on lies. So when somebody reacts that way, they're not going to be able to get to the heart of the matter. The sun squaring Neptune is also not understanding the self, not understanding who you really are. I'm not saying that everybody is going to be influenced in this way. This could be a challenge because even if you're like a more spiritually advanced person, I don't know how else to say that, but a developed person, when manipulation is occurring, it's not unusual for people to fall back into that pattern, because we have been conditioned this way since birth. We've been given all kinds of false messages about what life is all about and how we should approach life. And so even if you feel like you have left the matrix, it can still have its hooks in you in certain ways. And so you have to stand in your truth, stand in your sovereignty, and don't allow anyone to manipulate you and you do that by knowing who you are. There might be outer forces trying to tell you who you are, but you can stand in your own truth and know that nobody can ultimately control you to the point where they're trying to tell you that you can't be this or that. Because when I'm saying be something, I'm not talking about a particular profession or other superficial things that people use to identify themselves as. I'm talking about ultimately spirit, soul. Because even the body and threats about the body of like what could possibly happen to your body, these are the kinds of things that are used to manipulate. And because a lot of people have a fear of death, and even people who are spiritual sometimes, they're like, it's easy for them to be hijacked because they still have that residual fear of death. And if somebody tells them that if they don't do certain things, or if they do certain things, it's going to threaten their well-being, they may believe it. And this is happening with us in many different ways. And some people talk about like the supply chain situation. Even within spiritual communities, you may hear fear-based messages, and you have to be very discerning, because they really, to me, don't help very much. They create more overemphasis on the first chakra. I'm not saying that you shouldn't prepare or whatever that makes you feel safe, but that that kind of like obsession on it, about it, that to me keeps people at a lower frequency, because there's fear attached to it. Let's face it. It's a fear-based way to live. There's a like happy medium with things like that. But that's really what I'm referring to when I'm talking about who you really are, because keeping the body alive that's just the tip of the iceberg of who you are. Your true identity isn't wrapped up in the body, which is temporary. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't care about the body, but I'm talking about obsessing over it. So anyway, I think I'll leave it there. I hope that you enjoyed this, and now I'm going to be pulling some cards for the tarot. Okay, bye. All right, my battery is running low, so I'm going to do this very quickly. I'm just going to pick, let's see, how many cards? Maybe I will do like 5 of them. And I'm just going to put 5 piles. and then pick the top cards. And this is just going to be for the full moon. You know what? I was thinking of that card. I was going to use it as an example, and then I actually got it, of this full moon in Sagittarius energy and what we can see as things to manifest or what will manifest. Okay. Put these all side by side. Maybe I'll pick 6. What the heck? 6 cards. Oh, well, I'm going to have to create a new pile. And then this will be the card. Wow. I like that one. Okay. So let me start. Maybe I'll go from right to left. Why not? Because it's funny because I get the full and then the 2. It's like numerologically or numerically. So one of the cards is the Fool card. A completely new path. 0 point. You know, I've always tried to read about the full moon to get the real understanding of what it represents. And they talk about that it's the highest time for manifestation. And it's also a culmination. It's the harvest time as well. So this is more of what we would look at as the absolutely new beginnings, but it's so new that there isn't even time for anything to have begun to be recorded in this new journey. It's just that much of the beginning of it, if you will. And I feel like a lot of people are going through massive change in their life, or they're on the precipice of that. And it may even seem on the surface that things are extremely shaky and that it's not something that they're just boldly stepping through, like it's something so happy for them or great. It just feels like they have no choice. But at a higher level, you could very well be choosing this new journey. And you just have to get synced up with that. And it's funny that I said choosing this new journey, because another card that came up, the 2 of Wands, being at that crossroads of perhaps whether or not you want to go away from your familiar territory. This is a card, you know, the Wands are connected to fire energy, which is about expansion. So sometimes we want to do this, but we have obligations. Hence that other person holding on to one of the wands and saying, hey, you have things that you have to do here. You have to take care of this person or that person. And sometimes that's going to be the choice, is to stay put. But sometimes a person is going to say, you know, I did my part, and now I have to, it's time for me to fly. One of my favorite songs. Yeah. And it might even be deciding between 2 different career paths. Maybe you've come to the end of the line. And with the Fool card, something like that, it's like you feel like jumping in. You don't feel like researching it to death. There's like a sense of adventure. The Fool card is connected to Uranus, and that is a planet of thinking outside the box and living outside the box. And it's, you know, the ruler of Aquarius. It's not a cookie cutter type of energy. And it's interesting too, because we have Jupiter the ruler of Sagittarius, this full moon, in Aries. And that's the first sign. So there's that feeling that if we travel, or if we, try something that is totally new, that we can't fail. Now don't take it from me that's not a guarantee, but I feel like it's a whole new cycle. And kind of what the Fool card is, the very beginning of something. And this could be like some project of yours or new thing. Now we have here the Eight of Pentacles. This is someone who is very diligent about what they're doing. They may be getting training. This is a strong card for apprenticeship, training in something. But it's also a card of being a craftsman, being somebody who is taking pride in your excellence. And I see this card, and it's also a good money card, because number 8 is a number of worldly power and worldly, with the Pentacles, worldly wealth. Is that how you say it? But it's a card for me that no matter what you're doing, you could be bagging groceries, but you're doing something with a lot of intention behind it. You're not mailing it in. So whatever it is that you're doing, you're pursuing it at the highest level. And I feel like when people operate that way, they attract more opportunities and more abundance to themselves. The King of Swords. This is a very detached energy. This is a very, I was listening to another astrologer talking about this full moon and saying that because it's a supermoon, that it's going to be more emotional because it's closer to the earth. Okay, well, I think the last one was a supermoon too. I don't know if I felt that lunar eclipse as super emotional, and it was in Scorpio, so you would think I would have. But I would say that this is an energy of really having to realize what we're up against and taking the proper precautions, which means that you're staying above the fray. You're not getting sucked into the negative emotions that are trying to be generated in all of us in one way or the other. And that doesn't mean that a person is cold. It doesn't have to mean that anyway. But that you're keeping your sanity and your sense of good judgment, because you're not allowing yourself to get manipulated, and manipulated meaning not just to do something, but to feel something that you don't need to feel, that is not going to serve your highest purpose or serve other people. People get hysterical. It may be warranted, but it's not helpful. You know what I mean? And we have these heightened times, so that's always a good thing to do. We have the 10 of Cups. This is a card of celebration, especially with family matters. It's also the number 10 is the end of a cycle. So there can be a resolution to something, and it's something that ends on a good note. If this is related to family, there might be a feeling of resolution there. If there was any kind of bad blood, I think sometimes too, and this is what the King of Swords can be helpful with, is that even if someone is trying to push your buttons, when you don't take the bait, they may actually learn how to interact with you in a more positive way, more mature way. I said might. Some people are just, they just can't help themselves. That's just how, that's their coping mechanism, I guess, to be trollish or whatever you want to call it, and trying to get responses out of people. But the thing is that sometimes when they realize how much you mean to them, they do kind of stop all of that. And you might find that you are having better family relationships, or if this is something in your marriage, this is a card of marriage, your own committed partnership, this may be something where you're drawn closer together with this person. Because in times like this, like these, it can be very stressful, and it can definitely tear people apart, and some relationships break up and some get stronger. So on the emotional front, this can be very helpful. And I think, even though it was said that we might be more emotional, I think because the full moon is in Sagittarius, it makes it a little bit more of a positive, upbeat kind of influence. And speaking of which, here's that fire energy, the last card that I want to talk about, the Ace of Wands. Positive new beginnings, exciting new beginnings. This is going to usher in another green light portal of a couple of months or so of all the personal planets direct and out of their shadow. Mercury will be, when I say this time, actually a few days from now, Mercury will finally get totally out of its shadow. And this is that all systems are go kind of a card. So that can be very helpful if you've been waiting to do something, launch something, and you have felt that it's been one retrograde after another, or just other things going on in your life that you didn't feel it was appropriate to start something new that's very significant. You may find that this is going to be a great time to initiate, and that it will bring you a lot of excitement, whatever this thing is, because with fire, it's about creative self-expression, but it's also about freedom. And that is what this full moon is really all about, truth and freedom. That's what Sag stands for. I should know. I'm a Sun in Sagittarius myself. But anyway, thank you for watching and listening to my full moon report. I hope that you enjoyed this. Take care. Bye.